Good evening. Welcome to the State of Business on our television with me, Kavish Kaperera. Let's take a look at today's headlines. Agreement to set up 100 megawatt floating solar power plant signed with Canadian Commercial Corporation. Southern Provincial Council dissolved from midnight today. News in detail. The Power, Energy and Business Development Ministry and Canadian Commercial Corporation entered into an agreement before President Maithripala Sirisena yesterday at the Presidential Secretariat to set up a 100 megawatt floating solar power plant in the Madru Oya Reservoir. The Cabinet of Ministers recently granted approval for the proposal made by the President as the Minister of Mahavali Development and Environment, Minister of Science, Technology and Research and the Ministry of Power and Energy to establish floating solar power generation plants on the reservoirs in the Mahavali Economic Zone as a measure to solve the present power crisis and as a step towards using low-cost renewable energy sources. The first project will be implemented in the Madru Reservoir using solar panels and batteries which can store electricity with the Corporation of Canadian Solar Incorporation. Power, Energy and Business Development Ministry Secretary Dr. Suren Batagoda and Canadian Commercial Corporation's Asian Region Director Yuan Chin exchanged the agreement in the presence of President Maithripala Sirisena. The Governor of the Southern Province, Rajat Kirti Thennakoon, has signed the Gazette notification for the dissolution of the Southern Provincial Council with effect from midnight today. The term of the Southern Provincial Council ended at midnight yesterday, while the final session of the Council was held on Monday. Meanwhile, the final session of the Western Provincial Council was held yesterday under the patronage of Chief Minister Isuru Devapriya as the Council's official terms ended on 21st of April. The 6th Western Provincial Council commenced its 5-year term on April 22, 2014. Although the term of the office of the Provincial Council ended, the chairman of the council will function in official duties further and the governor will be given the responsibility of the Provincial Council. Speaking at the press conference held to announce the decisions of the second monetary policy review conducted by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Governor Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy expressed the following regarding the country's external account.
If you recall, last year the external account was a big problem. The trade deficit by this time was ballooning, but we've seen the trade deficit almost halve this year in the first 2 months. January and February, the trade deficit has come down from $2.1 billion to $1.1 billion. So there has been a significant reduction, and you would have seen from Chandranath's presentation that the sources of pressure that were there last year, that is motor vehicle imports, gold imports and oil, the first two have responded to the remedial measures taken by the government and the central bank. And of course, oil prices, though they are increasing at the moment, have come off their higher rates last year. So all in all, in the first couple of months anyway, the trade account is looking pretty good.
Dr. Kumaraswamy also elaborated on the condition of the current account deficit.
The current account deficit, which went up to 3.2% of GDP this year, we initially thought it would come down to 2.3% of GDP. Now it is possible, if present trends continue and there are no shocks, exogenous or domestic, that the current account could be even a little less than 2.3% of GDP.
The central bank governor also spoke on how the status of both the external and current accounts has impacted the rupee.
Now, the improvement in the trade account in particular, and through that the current account deficit as well, has meant that there has been less pressure on the rupee. So those were the domestic factors. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, the change in the Fed's monetary policy stance has meant that there has been less pressure for outflows from the government securities market. And in fact, we have actually seen some inflows coming in. And the rupee, as a result of the strengthening of the current account, the inflows have been stronger than they were last year in relation to the outflows. And on top of that, the global risk appetite for emerging market assets, high-yielding assets, has also been much more bullish this year, which has meant that the external front has also given a tailwind as far as the currency is concerned.
Stay tuned for more news after this short commercial break. Welcome back. The Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology University in Melbourne and University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka recently entered into a memorandum of understanding for a joint doctoral program between the two universities for engineering students. Facilitated by the Consulate General of Sri Lanka in Melbourne, Professor Sujeeva Setunga, Deputy Dean Research and Innovation for the School of Engineering at RMIT University, initiated the process of the establishment of this joint PhD program with the Sri Lankan universities. The doctoral program is focused on enhancing research capacities of the students of the respective universities, which will mutually benefit both in the institutions and the students. During the program, students will spend 2 years in Sri Lanka and 1 year at the RMIT University in Melbourne. RMIT University will be funding the entire cost of the year in Melbourne as well as the tuition fees for the full 3 years. The inauguration of the joint PhD program was held at the Faculty of Engineering, University of Peradeniya, with the participation of Professor Upul Dissanayake, Vice Chancellor, University of Peradeniya, Professor Sujeeva Setunga of the RMIT University, Professor Leelalanda Rajapaksa, Dean Faculty of Engineering, University of Peradeniya, Professor B.P.R. Dissanayake, Senior Professor, University of Peradeniya, Professor Jayalath Edirisinghe, Head of Civil Engineering, University of Peradeniya, and academic staff members of both RMIT University and Department of Civil Engineering of University of Peradeniya. A 5-member ministerial committee headed by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe has been appointed to resolve the existing power crisis. Minister of Finance Mangala Samaraweera, Minister of Power, Energy and Business Development Ravi Karunanayake, Minister of Highways and Road Development and Petroleum Resources Development Kabir Hashim, and Minister of Ports and Shipping and Southern Development Sagala Ratnayake have been appointed as the other members of the committee. The committee was appointed to present recommendations on the short-term, mid-term and long-term measures on resolving the crisis. The Cabinet of Ministers has approved the proposal presented by Minister Ravi Karunanayake in this regard. The permanent mission of Sri Lanka to the United Nations in New York, together with the permanent mission of Portugal to the United Nations, co-hosted the official reception of the occasion of the 8th Economic and Social Council Youth Forum on Monday, 8th April 2019 at the United Nations headquarters in New York. The reception was attended by ministers representing member states: Maria Luisa Ribeiro Viotti, Chief de Cabinet of the Executive Office of the UN Secretary General; Inga Ronda King, President of the ECOSOC; Jayathma Wickramanayake, United Nations Secretary General's Envoy on Youth; ambassadors and permanent representatives of New York-based missions; high-level UN officials and youth delegates attending the ECOSOC Youth Forum. The ECOSOC Youth Forum, held from 8th to 9th April 2019 under the theme Empowered, Included and Equal, aims to provide a platform for young leaders from around the world to engage in dialogue among themselves and with the United Nations member states with a vision of advancing progress towards the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, that is, Ababa Action Agenda and the Paris Climate Agreement. The Advanced Diploma in Financial Markets offered by the Colombo Stock Exchange is set to commence its second intake on 22nd April 2019 following the successful completion of the first intake in 2018. ADFM is the first academic qualification to be awarded by the CSE in order to foster maximizing knowledge in financial markets with a specific focus on capital market operations. The course, conducted in English, will be carried out by an eminent lineup of lecturers with senior CSE professionals to offer unique insight on modules. This qualification is recognized by the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants and have provided ADFM completed students an accelerated route to obtain a CIMA professional qualification and the Global Professional Designation of Chartered Global Management Accountants. Stay tuned for stock updates after this short commercial break. Welcome back. Trading at the Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a mixed note today. The All-Share Price Index dropped 0.08 points to close at 5,583.58, and the S&P SL 20 gained 0.64 points to close at 2,721.05. The turnover was 218.5 million rupees. 11.7 million shares were traded. Next up is Forex rates. Well, that's a wrap of the bulletin for the day, signing off with a promise for tomorrow at the same time with nothing but the latest. Thank you and good night.